Hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on this Lady Vagabond lifestyle tutorial. This is section A1. Hopefully you watched the previous video with the basics, but I'll still go over some basics with you. Okay, these are all the parts that I pre-cut, and I already pre-taped everything and inked the edges over the parts just so that the video will go a little faster. Okay, so as you can probably tell, this is a voiceover because I lost the audio for the first video that I've done, but it'll be okay. Okay, so what I'm showing you here are the different parts that are cut. I put them all together, and I will show you, I will let you know the size of each piece of each part that I've cut, and I will also let you know where it's scored, and you'll see that it's basically repeating itself. Okay, so this is A1, and A1 is the base of each section, and this is what you will be putting the parts of each section over. Okay. It's already scored, and when you get the measurement, you'll see that I'm putting it over the grid line here. This is 8 by 8 and 5/8, and it is scored over the 8 and 5/8 side. Scoring it is you put it over the scoreboard, and if you'll see an S or a DS next to that measurement, this is the part that you're putting on the top. Okay, so if I have the double score next to the 8 and 5/8, I'm putting the 8 and 5/8 side on the top. Okay. And then I'm scoring it down at 1/2 inch. For one score line is at 1/2 inch, and double score you put one at 1/2 inch and once at 5/8 of an inch. Just use your bone tool to put it over the scoring. Okay, so sometimes I will have you score after 1 inch, and in those cases I will make a note that the first score line starts at 1 inch. If they're more than 2, it'll be, score at 1 inch, 1.5. I will let you know where to start scoring. Okay, so take A1 and score it twice at the 8 and 5/8 line. And then you fold it. And when you fold a double score line, you will have 1/8 of an inch between the two lines, and it will create sort of like a distance between the page underneath. So it'll sit a little high. Okay. And you see how it's a little bit of, it looks like a C, or it has a little square there. You also see that I'm put next to the base sections, if it's the top or the bottom. If I put a top, it means that you're building your page with the wing on the top. Okay, so here is the page after you folded it. It'll have an 8x8 page. So 1/2 inch is the wing, 1/4 inch is the return, and the page itself is 8x8. All right, here, let's see what I'm doing next here. I think I'll have to take 8. Oh, this is the buckle. All right, the buckle is A3. And this is a piece that I'm just putting over the sections with a magnet to help keep the page closed. So you're cutting the buckle A3. It is 1 3/4 by 4 3/4, and I triple scored along the 4 3/4 side. And when I have a triple score there, you score it once at a 1/2 inch, once at 5/8, and then at 3/4. I also trimmed the edges. I gave it a little bit of different corner cutout, and I used We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile corner cutter. You just put it there and trim it. But there are other what do you call it? I keep missing words. Punches. There are different punches that you can do for corner punches, or you can use those scissors with different patterns on it. And whatever you have handy is good. If you don't have anything handy that does interesting corners, you can just trim it in a diagonal. That's good enough. All right, so I removed the tape and I'm putting it at the center of the left side. I turned it 90 degrees just because it's easier to see where the center is. I'm putting it over my grid lines and placed it in the center. Also notice that I'm going to be using double-side tape for this project. You can use regular PVA glue if you like. It's faster to use a regular glue. Okay, I scored A2 at a 1/2 inch, at 5/8 of an inch, and again I turned it around and I scored it at 5 inches. Okay, go ahead and fold the two parts where it's scored at a 1/2 inch and at 1/8 inch to one side, and then fold the other part where it's scored at the 5 inches onto the other side. Okay, now we're going to be attaching it over to A1. See, I put a little mark there just because I know to put a magnet there, so I won't forget. And the magnet will be I'll attach the little closure there with the magnet. Okay, so I'm aligning my section to the bottom. I took out a little piece of the tape. I aligned it, and when I'm happy with its placement, I take out the rest of the tape. And it's always a good idea to go over it with your bone tool and burnish it down just to make sure it still adheres well. Okay, we're off to the next section. This is A4, and A4 is a right flap. It is 8 by 8 and 5/8, double scored on the 8 and 5/8 side, exactly the same way that we scored A1. Okay, we'll attach A4 on top of the right side of A1. And I would recommend to always put it down before you actually apply the glue and glue it, just to make sure that does not interrupt the movement of any other folds and flaps and things that you have there. So I'm measuring to see that the size is correct. I'm realizing that it just goes over a little bit too much on the edge, and decided to make adjustments. This is the time to make adjustments. You may need to trim a little bit just to make sure that it doesn't go over the fold line too far. So I'm taking my trimmer and I'm going to remove a smidgen off, just a little bit of the edge. And as much as you think that you have the correct measurements and you measured it correctly, sometimes the paper itself is not cut accurately. You may trim a little bit off. So always a good idea to just make those adjustments before you glue the parts on. So I trimmed a little bit off of A4. I trimmed it on the left side, and now I'm going to be putting the tape over the wing. This is how I'm holding my tape. I'm just showing you the easiest way for me anyway. I'm putting three fingers through the hole, through the circle with my right hand because I'm right-handed. I'm using this little red tool. It's just a glue spreader, but it's plastic and it has a flat 1-inch line. And I like it because it fits nicely in my hand. So, find yourself something similar just so that it will help you work with the tape. And I'm using a pick tool to remove the back of the tape. Okay, here is again, I just removed part of it out so that I can make alignments. Make sure I placed it good and it's not crooked. When I'm happy with it, I'm going to press it down on the area where I took the tape and remove the rest of it. That's a good way to align your page. Okay, here we go. The first page construction is coming together. Okay, now I have to make sure where I want to put the magnets. I'm thinking to myself where I want to place it. Take one magnet and put it down. I usually try to put it on the top part first. These are disc magnets. It's called earth magnets, and they're highly magnetized and they're very thin, so it fits nicely under paper. So I put the first magnet there. I'm pressing it down a little bit with the glue. And I usually try to put the magnets or put some kind of marking where I want the magnets to go. Because for some reason, I always forget my magnets. I have a thing. Okay. I may have to move it later, I'm not sure, but for right now, I'm just putting them down so that I will not forget. to put the magnets, I'm placing the tape with the sticky part on the top and over the page, and I'm aligning where the magnet meets the magnet on the other side. So this way, when I fold my page, it'll land exactly at the spot where it needs to go, and then I'm pressing it down so that the sticky part of the tape will keep the magnet in place. Okay. So now all my magnets are aligned. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue there on the bottom underneath it. And I have my magnet placement. I may have to move it, but for now this is the plan where my magnets are situated. Okay, we're on to the next section. I have A6 flaps here and A5. So it's two flaps that are the same size. They're 6 1/4 by 5 3/4, and they're scored at the 6 1/4 side. The two parts are equal because I'm going to put one over the base and one over the right flap at the back side. After I fold, and it's one score line, it's not double. After I fold them, I have flaps that are 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And they will be placed at the center part of the top. So I'm turning it around because it's just easier for me to make sure that I'm putting it at the center and aligning it straight when it's closer to me. So I aligned the section on the grid line, and I'm marking the center part. If you don't have a grid mat, you can just use ruler and to mark your area where it's going and put it at the center. Doing the same thing on the other one. Okay, we are going to put some pattern paper over the construction that we've done for this page. I'm going to start with gold. And it's 4 by 7 3/4. And this one is from it's going over the A2 flap. Okay, 4 and 7 3/4. I already put tape on there, and I already inked the edges. Normally I don't ink edges of solid cardstock, but in this album I decided that it will just look better. Removing the tapes out. And I'm going to place it so that there is still about 1/8 of an inch border around the solid color. Here we go. This is my dabber with the ink, and I'm showing you here the ink that I use is from Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Inks. I use either the espresso brown or some kind of dark brown mixed with some of the black. I like dark edges. Okay, second piece that I am using here is from 12C2. It's 4.5 by 7 3/4. And I already inked my edges. So this is A2 pattern paper. The second column are the measurements of the base cardstock. So for example, the first section is 8 by 8 5/8, and it has double score next to the 8 5/8 side. The third column is the solid color cardstock. Sometimes I will put the color of the cardstock I'm using, sometimes I won't, but it will have the measurements. So you can decide what color you want to do. In this particular case, it's 4 and 7 3/4. Okay, and I will put gold next to it to make point that it is the gold color cardstock. The fourth column is the pattern paper, and on the pattern paper, as well as the measurement of the piece, I'm also going to add where I took it from. So this part came from 12C2, which is the 12 by 12 pack. C is for collection, to differentiate from the background 12 by 2 pack, 12 by 12 pack. Okay, so it's 12C, and then it has 2, and the 2 means it's the second sheet in the collection. Always start at the beginning, and the first page is 1, and then it's the second page is 2, the third is 3, etc. Okay, next to it, I'll put the measurements. Now, all of these will pertain to the same section on the page. If it's going over A2, it'll all have A2 next to it. Okay. So this piece I'm holding in my hand now is the 4 1/4 by 7 3/4. That's the measurement of the pattern paper. So if you'll see me calling out for A2, okay, it's either going to be the base cardstock, the solid cardstock, or pattern paper. Next, I am adding a couple of flat pockets. These are A10 and A11. They're 1.5 by 8, and a flat pocket doesn't have any score lines or any fold. It's just a piece of solid cardstock that will be attached in 3 of its 4 edges, leaving one edge open to tuck things in. I'm just adding, I cut out a piece of cardstock and I'm putting it at the back of the magnet because I don't want the sticky part of the double side tape to stick to the other side of the cardstock. It needs to be free of any sticky parts of glue. Okay, now we're moving on to add some solid color cardstock over the flat pockets. And these pieces are 1.25 by 7.75. So these are A10 and A11 solid cardstock. And then we'll put also the pattern paper. The pattern paper is also A10 and A11. They're 1.25 by 7.75 from the 12 by 12 pack collection. It's the C. Okay, 12C2. I'm going to trim the edges of the solid cardstock that goes under the little piece of pattern paper that I chose for the buckle. So this piece is 1.5 by 3 3/4, and you can chomp the edges and then ink also the solid cardstock. I'm going to put them one on top of the other. So this is the front part, and this will go over here on the back. Okay, we're moving on to put the pattern paper over the two top flaps, A5 and A6. These two are from the 4 card page on the collection pack, so it's the 12 by 12 pack, page number 7. And I picked those two. Of course, trimmed around it and inked, so the final size is 5.5 by 5.5. Okay, now we're going to put a couple of pockets underneath those flaps. And the pockets are 4¼ by 9. And I have on the background, over the pockets and under the flap, 2 pieces of solid color cardstock that are 4¼ by 7¾ So on your cut list, they're parts A7 and A8. Okay, we're going to apply the pockets now. They're A7 and A8, 4¼ by 9, scored once on the 4¼ side and twice on the 9 side. And when it's scored twice, it's one on the right, one on the left, and then on the 4¼ side, it's one along the other side. So it's scored 3 times on 3 sides. That's how we make a pocket. Then we have to cut a diagonal where the 2 score lines meet. Right at that dot, we're going to trim the entire corner out so that when we fold it, it's not going to overlap. Okay, and then we're going to fold the 3 wings and put a tape on the outside part. And there's one side that is not taped and it doesn't have a wing. That's the opening of your pocket. Here we go. It's taped on 3 sides. Now we have to remove the glue and make sure that it is nicely aligned. So before I remove the tape, I'm just putting it down just to make sure that the size fits perfectly. You don't want it to go over the area where it bends, right? Because if you put it over there and try to bend it, it will interrupt the movement of the flap. So before you remove the glue, make sure that it fits nicely. Okay. So I put one side down. And now that everything is aligned and straight, I'm removing the other 2 and I'll lay it down. And here we go. And now we have a pocket. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Again, this is A8 and A9. Sorry, A7 and A8. Now let's take the pattern paper that go over the pockets. There are sections A7 and A8 pattern paper. Cut it out from the background pack, the 12 by 12 backgrounds, from 12B11, and they're 3 1/4 by 7 3/4. Okay, it's time to put on the flat pockets that go over the other pockets. They're A9. 2 of them are the same size, 6 1/4 by 1 3/4. And you'll see in the cut list that I have 2 times in a parentheses, which means cut 2 parts, same size. And they're flat pockets, so I'm going to put the tape on 3 sides. Remember, there are no score lines. They just lay flat right there. And I'm not putting it all the way to the tip to the edge. I'm putting it slightly over because I still want the pattern paper underneath to show. Okay, and now I have the pattern paper from the first page from 12C1. I cut out those two little signs or saying, banners, whatever you want to call it. One that says memories, one says adventure. I cut them out, even sides around, and I'm going to place it right over the flat pocket. If you notice, there is a little bit of a wider frame than normal on both sides, on the right and on the left, and eventually I'll embellish it with something. Okay, so you see I did not put magnet there, and the plan is to put a tag or something inside that flat pocket, and that will keep the flap closed. Okay, now I want to show you a little bit of a little technique that I like using to embellish my pages. So I'm taking the black cardstock, and I'm going to trim some strips out with my paper trimmer. I'm just putting this here so that I'll have it ready. This is just pieces of remnants that I had for the tags, and I'm just placing them there. This is a good size. Okay. All right, I took a piece of remnant that I had from black cardstock, and I'm going to cut out a couple of strips that are 3/8 of an inch wide. Okay. I took some gold wax, or you can take gold wax, or it's like a gilding wax. You can take paint or anything that you have that is gold color that you like, and just paint those strips with gold. Okay, you can use anything that you have laying around the house or in your craft room. In case if you're a crafter like me, you have probably 45 different kinds of gold. So choose one that you like. I use the wax because I like this color gold, and also because it's new. I just bought it and I wanted to use it. It gives a nice shimmer over the black, and I thought it will look nice as an add-on. So this paint, the wax, it comes on a little bit creamy. It's like putting on creamy makeup on. And I like using my fingers because it will show a little bit of the black underneath it, so it gives it a nice effect. Obviously, the more you layer, the brighter the gold come out. So, okay, so that's the effect. You can put a little bit or a lot. It's really up to you, however, whatever you like. Okay, now that we put the strips down, now there's the matter of what do we put at the back side of the two flaps. Now I think that I'm going to just use my gold marker to outline an area where you can just put a photo in. You can put white cardstock, and designate that for photographs. You can take a piece of cardstock and do lines on. You can designate it for journaling. But I'm just going to put a golden frame around with my metallic marker. Okay, so this section is finished. I can add more embellishments over here to make it a little bit more colorful and fill out those spaces where I just have solid color. Okay, so now all it leaves me is the back of A4. And let's see what we're doing on the back of A4. Okay, I am going to take a piece of black cardstock and I'm going to cut a pocket. And I'm cutting it the 9-inch side by 5. Okay, I'm going to score it 3 times, twice on the 9-inch side and once along the 5-inch side. All right, after I scored the lines, I'm trimming the edges and folding the sides to create a pocket. Okay, and this is A12, 9 by 5. I'm going to add some tape to the wings of the pocket. Okay, the last pattern paper I'm taking from the background pack. It's 12B12, and I'm going to cut out 4 1/4 by 7 3/4, and this will go over the pocket, over the A12 pocket. So on this section, you will see that I put aside another magnet to put under the pocket to make the flap adhere to it. But then I decided not to do it and add another piece to the belt. So for now, if you see this magnet over here on the left side, you can just ignore it because I'm going to use it on the belt. Okay. Let's place it down over the pocket. Okay, and push it down to get rid of any potential air bubbles that come up. Okay, last piece. I'm taking a second piece for the buckle. I'll call it A13, but it actually is a part of A3. So I have to do the same width is 1 3/4. And I think I'll make a longer strip here. So I'm measuring 1 3/4. And I'll cut it here at 7 inches, I think I took. Let's see. I want it to be about where the halfway point is. So I cut 7 1/4 at 7 1/4. I do triple scoring at 1 inch, at 5/8, 1 inch, 1 1/8, and 1 1/4. Okay, if you see, I put the glue on the top part, on the not the usual way, because I'm actually gluing it around the flap. Okay. And now I'm aligning the magnet. I'm putting it on the tape where the side of the sticky part is on the top. And putting it down. I'm just taking my time aligning it a little bit. Okay, we are all finished with section A. I hope you enjoyed it and that you were able to complete it perfectly. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm always available to answer your questions. I'll see you in the next sections. Bye.